In this video, I'm going to go over why marriages fail. We're going to talk about what happens and how to repair your relationship. If you're watching this video, I'm assuming you're struggling in your marriage, that you want to repair and heal your emotional connection with your spouse, but you don't know how. You probably know what's wrong, but you don't know how to get back to that connection that you originally had. I'm going to break it down by sharing a model I've been working on called the Happy Relationship Model. We're going to go through this and talk about what is happening and practical things that you could do to restore your marriage. And when I say you, I don't just mean you, the individual. I mean you as a couple. Thank you. Thanks for watching. I'm not going to really edit this, so if there's some awkward pauses or something, or I have to check the clock because I'm doing this on my lunch break, you will just bear with me, please. First of all, what is a happy relationship? This is the acronym for HAPPY. It's having hard conversations, accepting responsibility for my part of the problem because I know how to repair. The problem with marriages, first off, is they don't have the hard conversations, or when they do, neither one or just one person takes all the responsibility. Both people in a relationship have to own up for their part of the problem that they have. It's normal for relationships to get stuck in patterns where they repeat the same cycle over and over again, and that is the major problem in marriages. When couples get stuck like that, they don't know how to repair. And when you don't know how to repair, you don't have the hard conversations, and you're going to not really accept responsibility because it feels like you're taking losses left and right. Here's the model. The Happy Relationship Model. In this model, it starts at the base. You have your goals as a couple. These are what you want for your marriage or what you don't want. Say you want a loving marriage or you don't want to get divorced. This is what you're going for. So you have your goals, and as you start living out your life and your tree is growing, hypothetically, disruptive or difficult events are going to occur. And when they do, people start doing things on this left side. This is the side, and these are things that kill a marriage. If you avoid conflict, you criticize the other person, you judge their emotions and feelings, and then you make assumptions about that person or the situation you're in, and you have no process. If you have no process to repair your relationship, you're going to get stuck doing these things over and over and over again. And over time, there's things that are going to fall out from that. That's going to be resentments, isolation, fear, anxiety, frustration. It's going to lead to the death of a marriage. Even two people that love each other dearly, if they get stuck doing these things over and over again, it's going to kill the marriage. It sucks the life right out of it. On the other side, you have the builders. These are things that build up a marriage. These 5 things are things that each person has to be willing to do. This cannot be a one-sided thing. First, you revisit conflicts. You express appreciation for the other person. You validate their emotions. You clarify misunderstandings, and then you repeat that process. And when you repeat that process over and over and over again, as difficulties occur in your marriage, this is the fruit that comes from that. Peace, love, joy, enjoyment. This pumps life into your marriage. Most marriages might do some of these things, but they're not doing all these things. And when they don't do all these things, or if only one person's doing them, they end up right back repeating these killers over and over again. Let me check the time real quick. Okay, I'm good. I got another session in about 30 minutes. Okay, so how does this work? How do you build back a marriage, and why is it hard to do these builders? First off, let's start with revisiting conflicts. People don't revisit conflicts for multiple reasons. They've tried to have the conversation, but it didn't end well. So they don't want to keep having the same conversation on repeat if it's not ending up with the couple feeling back connected again. This leads to people avoiding the conflicts, and therefore they get stuck over and over and over again. If you're going to revisit a conflict, it's important for both people to be intentional. They have to be intentional. They have to be willing to be vulnerable. When you're in a conflict with your spouse, it's very hard to be vulnerable. At the same time, it's necessary to heal and repair your marriage. Vulnerability is key, and also the conversations need to go very slow. Conflict and arguments, if you haven't noticed, in your own marriage, which I'm sure you have, they can go really fast. It's so easy for assumptions or misunderstandings to take place. For example, you and I might be having a conversation. This could be happening now actually, where you might not fully be understanding what I'm saying, and you might take offense to it. And when you take offense to it and tell me something negative or critical, I then could take offense to that, and then I'm going to respond out of that. So I might amp up my energy and kind of start attacking you and point my finger at you. And before we know it, we're going to be stuck in a negative cycle without a process to get out of it. So when you revisit conflicts, it's not to drudge up the past or remind people of everything they did wrong. It's to revisit a moment in your relationship that hurt the relationship. It's a moment that when you think about it, you don't feel good about yourself or the relationship, or you feel more distant from your spouse. You don't want to just revisit things that neither one of you care about. But if it's an event or if something has occurred that hurt you and it makes you want to move further away from your husband or wife, those are the kind of things that need to be revisited. So to be revisited, they need to go slow, and it has to be vulnerable. Both people have to be willing to be vulnerable, which is really hard to do. That's why you're trying to go slow. And then you do the next thing. You express appreciation for another. Most often when couples get in arguments, they're not intentional. People regularly, at certain points, it can get to the point where it's intentional, but most arguments are not intended to be arguments. If I'm frustrated with my wife and I want to work it out, I might go towards her to work it out because I want us to be back good again. The problem is often how I go towards her. I might raise my voice or say a critical comment about her. And when she hears that, she's going to shut down and pull back because it doesn't feel like it's a safe conversation. So when you're revisiting, you also want to express appreciation for the other person's intent, not necessarily how they went about it, but for what they were intending. So if my wife were to express appreciation for me going towards her, she doesn't have to agree with me calling her a name or something that we all agree is wrong. But she would express appreciation and say something like, hey, I can appreciate that you knew something was off with us, but you were coming towards me because you wanted to work it out, because you wanted our connection back. I then would express appreciation to her, and I'd say something like, hey, I can totally see why you moved back because you needed to feel safe. And I could appreciate why you did something to protect yourself in a situation that didn't feel totally safe. When you express appreciation for what the other person was intending, it helps soften the mood, and it slows the conversation down, and it helps each other know that we're both trying really hard. We're just unintentionally missing each other, and it's causing a lot of frustration. As you're expressing appreciation, the next thing you want to do is validate your spouse's emotions. Validation does not mean agreement. People get this confused all the time. What happens is in any event, a person has an emotion and they have thoughts. Thoughts and emotions are not the same thing, but people fuse those two together so they think that their thoughts and feelings are the same. That's why you hear people say all the time, you'll be like, hey, man, what was that? How did that feel when you failed that test? And they'll say, I feel like a failure. They're giving you a thought, I'm a failure, that's fused with an emotion, embarrassment, or shame. And they think it's the same thing, but they're actually two different things. So when you're validating someone's emotions, you're not necessarily agreeing with the thought. You're validating the emotion, reflecting back the thought. This is the hardest thing for people to do. I see this every day in my work as a licensed therapist. Couples have the hardest time validating each other's emotions. It's hard for several reasons, most of which are we're not taught how to do it. We're actually taught and encouraged that, yes, your thoughts and feelings are fused. They're all the same. They're connected but different. When you're trying to help somebody and work through a problem, you validate their emotions. So this, I guess, is kind of an extreme example. Let's say I'm seeing someone who's had an affair. I do not objectively agree that it's okay that they had an affair. But if I'm trying to help them work through what happened, how they got there, and what led to the affair, I would validate that person's emotions. Say they say something to me like, it just got to the point where I felt like my spouse didn't love me anymore. Again, I feel like they don't love me anymore. That's the thought. That means they have a feeling. They're not saying the feeling, they're just saying they don't love me anymore. So then I would validate by touching on the feeling. I could see how you felt lonely in your marriage. And the longer you were lonely in your marriage, that led you to have thoughts that your wife doesn't love you anymore. And the longer you were left with those thoughts, the feelings only grew, which puts you in a vulnerable position to then do something that you know you don't totally agree with. Not once did I agree that, yes, you should be having an affair. That's an example of validation. And again, it's very hard to do. We can do more videos on this in the future. It could probably be its own video in and of itself. But validate emotions is huge. Next is you clarify misunderstandings. Almost every argument boils down to some type of misunderstanding that's occurred. And then you start adding more misunderstandings on top. So as you're revisiting, expressing appreciation, validating emotions, as that's happening, and if you're feeling more and more connected when you're talking like that, then you start clarifying what you really meant or what your intention was in order to help both people see the reality of what was happening. When couples get in arguments, they get really narrow focused and they can't really see multiple perspectives. If you and I got in a fight, I'm just going to interpret that fight how I perceived it. And I'm not going to really listen to any of your excuses because I already know what you're doing. I might even say your excuses are manipulation, but they might not actually be. When you see it so narrow, you can't see the full picture. So as you're clarifying the misunderstandings, it helps both people see what's fully going on. And as you're doing that, you keep continuing the same process. You repeat the process over and over again of revisiting, expressing appreciation, validating emotions, and then clarifying the misunderstandings. If you're doing this on a regular basis as a couple, it's going to lead to way clearer communication. You're going to feel more understood and closer to your spouse. When you have your goals, we want to have a loving marriage, and then life starts drifting you away from that loving marriage, this process helps put you back on the same page to meet that goal. And you just keep doing that as life throws stuff at you. The reality of life is it's going to be hard, messy stuff's going to happen, and there's no way through it, especially if you don't have a process. You know your goal, and then you start doing these steps to reach that goal in a way that brings you and your spouse closer and closer together. What happens for couples when they don't have a process, they just drift further and further apart. And before they know it, they don't even enjoy their spouse anymore, and they're perpetually frustrated. If you do not want to be frustrated, resentful, angry at your spouse, this is the process for both people to commit to. If you are both willing to have these hard conversations, to accept responsibility for your part of the problem y'all have gotten in or the pattern you're in, it is going to help you because you will know how to repair. When couples know how to have those hard conversations and they know how to repair, they're going to feel closer than ever because it gives so much confidence. It communicates to you, we can go through something hard, but we know we're going to repair. And the more you repair, the more secure it's going to make your marriage. And marriages thrive when couples do this. They die when they don't. The problem most couples have is they know what their problem is. They just don't have a process. When you don't have a process that brings you back together, you fail. If you found this video helpful, would you share it? Would you use this as a tool to have a discussion with your spouse? Take what you agree with, what you don't, or flesh it out. Let me know your thoughts, disagreements in the comments. My heart as a marriage therapist and person who loves to see marriages succeed is to help couples. It is something that I have felt called to since I was younger, and this model that I've been working on is my approach to help couples have the marriage that they want. Thanks.